Welcome to the SPEAKPact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Rose, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the SPEAKPact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Rose.
Welcome back to the SPEAKPact podcast. I am your host, Antoniette Rose, and today I'm with a pretty special lady, Helen Hirsch Spence. She is a TEDx speaker, she is an author, and she is a woman on a mission. And I love to hear the stories of passion to profits, right? Somebody taking their passions and actually creating a career out of that. So we're going to follow Helen's journey in that. But what's really interesting is she's starting out a whole new direction at advanced age. So we're gonna dive into that too, because I actually represent at least one other speaker who's done the same, and it's worked out pretty incredibly. So Helen is interested in harnessing the strengths, power, and value of older adults and determined to reframe the narrative of aging. Helen Hirsch Spence founded Top 60 Over 60, love that, in her late 60s, and you wouldn't believe her age now, but you couldn't guess, you just can't guess, as a recognized thought leader with a longevity mindset. Helen, you don't know it, but I was the founder and producer of the Texas Natural Wellness Expos, and longevity and well-being is all very much part of my passion as well. Helen reminds people to never limit themselves because of age. You can learn, well, we'll talk about where you can learn more here in a minute. But she calls herself the age provocateur. I love that. She's a mindset shifter, and she wants to reframe the aging narrative. Now, what we're going to dive into is how she became an internationally known keynote speaker. She is sought after not only in the longevity literacy area, but also for the insights and wisdom that she brings to the table. So first and foremost, what made you choose discomfort when you should have been sitting back in your easy chair? If you're thinking of North America, that's just kind of the narrative. So tell me a little bit about what made you say, no, that's not for me.
Well, I mean, it's been a long process, I have to tell you, and thank you. Before we get going, I just want to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you in particular, and also with your audiences, because it's definitely a delight and another opportunity for me also to share the message. But going back to your question as to why, it's really simple. I was doing so many different activities worldwide before I started this. First of all, my whole career was in education. I was a high school principal. I was a president of, I live in Canada in the Ontario Principals Council in a girls' separate school, private school. And then I embarked on not-for-profit work. I did a lot. So this is all the way into my mid-60s. And then suddenly I started losing my confidence, and I didn't feel my self-worth in the same way. And after all the experiences that I had, it didn't really make sense. And I delved a little bit further, and I realized that what I was experiencing was ageism. And it really made me angry. It really prompted me to go deeper and to figure out what's this all about. So I really had no idea. I mean, we hear about all these other discriminatory practices such as sexism and racism, you name it. But we never hear about ageism. It's the only, discriminatory practice that is still socially acceptable. I took courses also at that time in social entrepreneurship because, frankly, didn't know much about it at this point in my life. And it was one of my former students who introduced me to it. So being a lifelong learner and being curious and always interested in personal development, I took these courses and I decided that what I wanted to focus on was the issue that was actually bringing me down, which was ageism. And so that's really what started me. And I called it Top 60 Over 60 because at the same time I was experiencing or seeing in the papers and everywhere, top 30 under 30, top 40 under 40. And again, I thought, you know what? We need to raise the profile of older adults. And although I haven't created this opportunity yet, I'm in the process of working on it in a variety of different ways to help everybody understand that being over 60 is really just another stage of life and opportunity.
Oh,
It's not the end of the world. Yeah, on the contrary, it's the
it's the
beginning
beginning.
of a very strong, opportunity to thrive and grow, bring joy. It's all about generativity as you get older.
Generativity. Well, one thing I'd like to dive into, okay, before we hopped on, we were
Mhm.
talking a little bit, and you were talking about the numbers of that we're ignoring, largely
Yeah.
ignoring.
Mhm.
And
The demographics.
I'm seeing more and more people over the age of 50, maybe even 60, who want to start afresh. They want to
That's
start
right.
anew
Mhm.
and self-doubting because of the messages they're getting from our
That's right.
nation,
Yeah.
from our world.
Mhm.
Sadly, especially North America, I feel it does not elevate their elders like a lot of other, I feel like, healthier cultures do.
Mhm.
And we're in a space, I'll let you share those numbers here in a moment, where there's the number of elders are going to be kind of bigger than ever. And what about that feeling, because our culture puts it on us, what about that feeling of, I really did want to get my voice out there, I really did want to get a book out there, I really did want to ABC, but now it's too late, like too much time has gone by.
It's
So
never too
yeah,
late.
it's never too late. I'll
No.
share a super quick story and I want to give it to you. But I happen to be married to an older man, a man who is a good bit older than me. And I feel very blessed that I was able to help him retire about 2 years ago. He entered into the world of paint contracting. He owned a pretty good sized paint contracting company pretty early because he got married young and started raising kids, and it's just something that he went into. But his heart, pre-marriage, he was actually in the music scene with some big names and could have really made that. Capitol Records had been super interested in him and some of his songs, but he laid all of that down to focus on raising his family. And he saw the divorce rates and the crazy things of the music industry with family. Anyway, he laid that down. And when I was able to help him retire a couple of years ago, he expressed interest to pick it back up. And he's he's a little bit younger than you, but not a whole lot younger. And I'm all for it. Like, I have seen a vibrancy and a life and a light come back to his eyes, and he's still just as talented. So why think it's too late? It's too late to do that thing, to get my voice out there, to really create something new. What made you decide, no, that's not the truth?
Well, first of all, I mean, let me go back a bit. One of the things that I realized, and that I don't think that we talk enough about, although it should be very evident to governments and to businesses and everything, is that we're undergoing a demographic shift to older. And we've known about this since the 1980s, but nothing really has been done. But it's so dramatic now. For instance, in the United States, over 12,000 people turn over 65 every day. You've got a population in Canada, 1/5 is already over 65.
Mm,
And it's moving in that direction, and we're getting older. It's exponential. By 2050, there'll be double as many people worldwide that are over the age of 65.
wow.
And yet
Huge.
we're not,
Hmm.
yeah, it's huge. And yet we're, in every developed country, we're already there. And in the countries that are developing, we're coming to that. It's not as quick, however. But the reality is that we're also in a stage of depopulation. We have a declining birth rate. In the United States, it's 1.6 babies per woman. In Canada, it's 1.3. We're among the lowest third of repopulation. So we're not replacing ourselves. So I don't know why businesses and whatnot are not recognizing the fact that there will be nobody in the next few years to replace all those people who may want to retire. And I might add that we also have today a longevity bonus of about 20 to 30 years, which means that we're living a lot longer than our grandparents were. And if you think that the whole 20th century paradigm was around focused on the age of retirement being 65, and that was established in the 1930s with Social Security when the average lifespan was 62. Today, it's closer to 80 in our respective countries, a little higher, in Canada, a little lower. It's not realistic to continue to think in terms of the age of 65, besides the fact that our pensions or Social Security can't support it. So with rising inflation and all sorts of other realities, many people, as they get older, need to work, but others, such as your husband and myself, are maybe fortunate enough that we may want to continue to do something other than, how long can you play golf or play tennis or cribbage or whatever it is you might want to do? We also know now that to be healthy and live longer, we need to have purpose in life. We need to engage socially. Work provides those things, and the mental activity that comes with work. Many people, their whole social lives revolve around the people with whom they work. And when they stop, it's like death.
Yeah.
One of the biggest factors in today's world in the United States, I think about 25% of the population is lonely, older people and younger people. And so I don't only speak about the ageism with regard to older people, although that's one of the major areas that I do speak about. But I think it's very important that we also acknowledge that we need age equity, that we have 4 or 5 generations, multi-generational opportunities in the workforce today. And that's where the richness is. And we're not taking advantage of it either. So, I'll work with employers and with businesses, organizations to help them realize that one of their longevity strategies for being successful is, in fact, employing individuals across the age spectrum in order to maximize productivity, innovation, and revenue, quite frankly.
Right.
I don't know if I answered your question.
You
though.
did, and you brought up 3 more. So
Okay.
one of the speakers that I've had the pleasure of representing in my speaker agency, she had helped her mom through mental decline, right? And so the numbers that she was sharing with me was incredible. In corporations and business, there's as the population continues to get older, that means that the leaders within particular organizations are often tasked with caring for an even older loved one.
That's right.
And so then they're now not only taking care of themselves and their own families, but, an aging loved one. And all of this has a huge impact on our commerce, on our stability as North American businesses and nations, but also in our communities and culturally. And I love that you have devoted your voice to really helping people embrace their elders. I think that will be a stronger world for it. And I want to see your voice and your message get out there, as well as many other 50, 60, 70, 80, 90-year olds. Why not? I remember being really young, and we called him the mountain man. And we would go to this park, and there was this 90-something-year-old man that would be there every Saturday with all kinds of dexterity games and that kind of thing. And he would spend his entire Saturdays showing us how to catch hoops with our arms and just different things to sharpen our minds.
Mm-hmm.
That man affected me. I was a child. all these years later, I'm sure he's long gone by now.
Right.
I remember him because he wasn't sitting back on his easy chair and taking the death sentence, but he understood his value. He understood what he still brought to the table,
Right.
and he innovated. So why not, whether we're 20, 40, or 60? And I know some 20-year-olds who think like 80-year-olds, right? Who
That's
just kind of give up because of whatever circumstance. But you decided to look at that circumstance in the face and actually create a whole movement with the power of your voice. When we talk about the power of your voice, yes, it's getting out there, speaking, training, but also books, which I know that you have a new one coming out pretty soon. I'm super excited about that. We'll share that. But the whole idea of somebody who's maybe turning 50 and or 60 and looking at retirement from their kind of maybe lifelong career, what would you say to that person that says, I'm retiring and I always really wanted to be a speaker. I always really wanted to be an author. I missed the boat. What would you say to that person?
I would say that, age is, we always talk about one age only, and that's chronological, from birth to whatever we are. That's chronological age. But there are other kinds of ages. There's, and there are stages of life. There are functional ages, there are social ages, there are psychological ages.
Ooh, love it.
Why are we hung up always on this silly number that really, it represents something policy wise and institutional wise because of drinking and driving and the beginning of life and at the end of life. But we've been educated, unfortunately, to think ill of aging. I mean, it's a $64 billion or $62 billion business, the anti-aging industry in the United States alone annually. That's a hell of a lot of money dedicated to making us feel uneasy about growing older. And I realized also, and I still am, I'm sure I'm vain. I don't want to look like 100, but I am growing into my wrinkles and trying to accept them because I realize that I've done a disservice to myself and to other, especially women who care about these things and who are also experiencing gendered ageism, especially in the workplace, that it's important to live up to whatever you are. It's a privilege, to be up. I'm 75, so I'll be 76 in the summer. It's a privilege to be my age. Not everybody's as lucky as I am to get this old and to be able to do these things. And we need to, in my opinion, we need to make age aspirational.
Make
We
age
need to,
aspirational.
that's going to be my tagline
Love it.
so don't use it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the point is, that's what's necessary. We need to change. We need to really change the narrative. We need to help young people and middle-aged people and older people accept the reality that aging is a process, and it's not. It only ends when you're gone. And up until then, there's no reason on earth why you shouldn't share your wisdom. I mean, that's the whole problem in business. When you have older people who leave, all that institutional corporate knowledge goes with them. Why aren't we keeping those people in some capacity so they can be ambassadors to those companies and institutions, sharing those knowledge either through mentorship or, there are a variety of different ways that when I work with businesses. But the point is, that's a loss. You can't replace that with a 25-year-old. And I'm all in favor of bringing in the 25-year-old. But that 25-year-old has a hell of a lot to teach me.
Yes.
And I can
And
learn.
vice
It's about
versa.
reciprocal mentorship as far as I'm concerned. And
Reciprocal
those are the
mentorship.
kinds of messages that need to get out there. So I've started, having been in education, I was always working with younger people.
Mm-hmm.
I was the, principal of a girls' school, and we went on service trips to Peru, and I walked the Inca Trail with the girls and did community service. We climbed, we built a school at the base of Kilimanjaro and climbed to the summit. Not everybody made it, but I did, and I was close to 60. The point being is, in those joint experiences, I learned as much as my students did, and they're still a part of my life, In fact, one of them is 65. We're still in touch. One of my very first classes. where I was teaching. It's so rich, to have had that opportunity. So I believe that the strength in the future lies across all generations.
I want to cross over the line a little bit because it
Sure.
might sound a little bit rude, um, but I'm pretty serious about this. So you have a generous spirit. You care. You have this
Mhm.
depth of caring. You could have kept all that journey of your life, all the experiences that you had, all of the solutions that you figured out the hard way, right along the way. You could have just said, "Okay, I had a good journey. Close the book." Instead, you're giving that forward. And I love the way that you said joint experiences and reciprocal mentorship, because
Mhm.
that I feel like is so rich in cultures when you're 60, 70, 80 and can still be learning from a 20-year-old,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
vice versa, right? Why would that youngster that that feels like 5 lifetimes ago, why sentence them to make the same mistakes that you maybe made along the way? One beautiful thing I think about age, one thing I'm really embracing in mine is I don't really I'm not so self-conscious as I once was. I'm more bold and
Mhm.
willing to put myself outside of my own comfort zone,
Right.
because I've had enough experiences to know whoever you're trying to impress at any given time, they come and go. But I have this one life and this one opportunity to make it the richest life that I can, not just for myself, but for all those who get to come into my orbit. And I do believe that with age,
That
that comes, hopefully.
No, it does typically because as we age, we tend to lose our egos. So you'll find that older people who have accomplished a variety of different things tend to be a bit humbler, and they're more ego to reach out and help other people. That's part of the whole aging process. There are so many benefits to growing older that we never talk about. Like broadening perspectives. That our brains function in different ways, and they're sort of like hard drives. It may be difficult at times to retrieve some of that information, which has to do with recent memory. But the reality is that all of the expertise and experience that we've had combines to help us problem solve and solve conflicts in new and different ways. And so it's called crystallized intelligence,
Mm.
what we gain as we grow older. And what young people have is fluid intelligence. And the best thing you can do is combine the two and get the benefits of both in a variety of different ways. But I think, going back also to what you said earlier about elders in other societies, Western society hasn't picked up on, indigenous cultures, um, you know, resources to the extent that they should, uh, and might want to look into. Elders have always been significant in indigenous cultures in North America, South America, Asia, wherever. We see tremendous respect in Asian families for elders. They are not put into retirement homes as willingly or as easily as it may happen here for a variety of different reasons. It is a cultural thing, but it isn't appropriation by calling people elders. There's a book called Elderhood, which I think is brilliant. I think that is the stage that we should be referring to. We don't have enough vocabulary, to tell you the truth. Seniors is negative and pejorative as far as I'm concerned, and has become that in older adults. But older people are more heterogeneous than younger people because they've had so much life experience. So you'll never find two that are similar. And to group statistics as 65 and older is really antiquated and criminal. We need to start changing it because we have different stages of adulthood, older adulthood. We need to develop vocabulary to to accompany those different stages. Adolescence, for instance, wasn't a word until I think it was maybe the 1950s. I can't, don't quote me, but it was a relatively new word, you know?
Well, Helen, absent your voice, many of us might not even hear some of these concepts. So to me, that just speaks to the power that you have at any age
Mhm.
if you have the courage to get your voice out there, which you do, whether you were standing in front of me at 20,
Mhm.
40, or well into your 70s, it's still you. It's still your spirit, your concepts, your point of view. And I love some of the things that you have said, and some of them I've never heard before. So you're definitely teaching me. Crystallized intelligence versus fluid intelligence. Yes, that's everything I've never known how to say. It's so amazing. I love that. I also like the heterogeneous
Mhm.
that you talked about, and that there's different kinds of aging. Yet we clump it all into our physical age, but there's a mind age, a psychological age. I think you called it a
Yeah.
functional age.
Mhm.
When you just
Biological, functional,
biological, so you look at the love them or
the
hate them. We're not going to
measurements.
get into politics, but
No,
you look at the past two U.S. presidents, and they were elders,
older.
right?
Mhm.
Older. Um,
I wouldn't say, people always say older people are wise. I don't
not
agree with
always,
that.
not automatically.
No.
If you're a jerk young and you never evolved, then you're going to be a jerk older or whatever it might be. But I absolutely love the bridge that you're creating, because I think it's not only important to those who actually are 50, 60, 70 and above, but those of us who are trying to figure this life out, trying to
Mhm.
figure things out. Maybe now we're bosses and we get to choose. Do I pick somebody more experienced, or do I pick somebody who might be younger, right, to work in my organization? You're really kind of starting to bust through some of
I'm
those
trying.
mind barriers. And that's what it takes. It takes one voice that turns into another voice, that turns into another voice. This is the avalanche in a good way, the kind of avalanche we want to see. So thank you for
There's
the work that
something,
you're doing. Yeah.
there's something else that I just want to mention because I think it's so important. What we have today is a new map of life. And, young people, if you look at the traditional milestones, we're not getting married anymore in our 20s. Many women aren't even having babies, or if they are, they're having them later. Everything is being bumped up. And yet we're still trying to crowd that whole learn, earn, retire narrative into a short span of time, when in fact, we've got 90 years or 80 or 90 years. My grandchildren are expected to have an average life expectancy of 100. Average. That means there'll be many who are in their hundreds,
Yeah.
upwards of 100. There's no way that they should cram a career or one career into 50 years. These young people need to know that they can take gap years, sabbaticals, and go back, retrain, do something different. Because there's no way that anybody is going to be the way in my generation. You had a career of 30 or 40 years. Many people won't even be that fortunate to have a pension or whatever. So they're going to need to do things differently. We need to start helping young people recognize that these are opportunities to try out different, styles, careers, lifestyles. We don't have to stick with one. And yet that's what we used to do. And that still seems to predominate. And we need to be mindful of that.
Yeah. So much truth there. And how do you, Helen, there is a big narrative out there, not from every direction, from our family, from our communities, from our doctors. I'll tell a quick funny story. We don't really go to like mainstream doctors, my husband and I, but we did. He had hurt his shoulder or something. We took him in, and the look on the doctor's face, the look of horror on the doctor's face, that my husband at his age wasn't on at least one medication. Like
Oh,
he should have been on at least one. What? We better do some blood work. And everything turned out great. He's great. He doesn't need
mhm.
to be on medication. I remember when I brought my mom from California to Texas, where I am, she was on 18 medications. And she wasn't her. She wasn't that spunky, spicy Italian woman who was challenging me at every. So I'm like, Mom, challenge me. Like
Yeah,
I, I drives me crazy, but that's you. I want you.
yeah.
I want you back. And so I started looking into these medications, and she
Mhm.
only needed two. All these other medications were offsetting effects of the other medication. Anyway, it took about a year to back her off. And
Mhm.
really, when she did finally leave us, she was on one and then occasional pain medication for her knee. And that is a blaring message, if you're over the age of 50, essentially, that you should be sitting in the doctor's office at least half the week, right? And you should have all these pills lined out on your countertop, and be a good human and take your medication. Like, it's just this whole narrative that we're getting all over the place. So yeah, like, how am I going to really put forth new innovation in my life? How am I going to reinvent this next step, this next journey? You said the narrative has been learn, earn, retire. I love that. Let's change it to learn, earn, reinvent, or learn, earn, innovate, whatever it is, because really,
Learn, gap, reinvent, learn. I mean, learning, same thing with universities. They're all losing students because there aren't anymore.
mm,
There's an age cliff of 18. In the United States, from what I've read, the research has shown that 18, there will be far fewer 18-year-olds going forward
wow.
because they're not being born. So who's going to occupy all those seats in universities if we don't get some of other generations mixed in there?
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a richness in and of itself, just by combining ages in learning environments. So things are going to have to shift and change, and it'll cause some disruption. And some people are not going to adjust to it all that easily, and others more easily. But we're besides all the politics that are going on at the moment, we're in very, very rapidly changing times. And because of AI, all sorts of jobs are going to be different moving forward. There are some stats out there that, today, 20 years from now or 10 years from now, there'll only be 30%, jobs that we recognize. And I don't have the statistics probably correct on that, but the point is that they're changing, and we need to change with it and stop fighting the inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need you know what we need? We need, and this was what my TED Talk was about too, was a longevity mindset, which means that we recognize that living longer is the new norm, and we accept it and we work with it as opposed to fighting it. It's really like a growth mindset.
And I truly believe that's only going to grow. I think your
Yeah.
estimation of living to 100 is a true one, but I think that it's going to, like, even in America, and probably Canada and America are pretty closely related when a shift happens
Yeah.
in one.
Mhm.
But we're getting rid of some of the crazy food additives, and
Yeah.
we're
Ultra processed food. Yeah.
starting to mimic Europe a little bit more, which I think we should have done a long time ago, right? Why are we feeding ourselves poison, and other countries won't do that? But so that's going to have an effect, and maybe not even just an effect on how long we live, but how long we live well,
That's
right?
right.
How long we live.
So I think that along with a longer lifespan, um, we need to aspire to a longer health span, because what's the point of having a longer life if you don't enjoy it?
I love hearing you say that, because it drives me insane when somebody says we're all going to die anyway. I'm like, yeah, are you going to limp your way to the end,
That's
or
right.
be wheeled to your way to the end? Or are you going to be skipping your way to the end? Like,
And there's so much we can do to make those last years be better. And they have to do with strength training, eating well, also, sleeping, all sorts of really simple, um, non-medicinal ways in which we can improve our health span. And we ignore it.
let's talk about that for a moment, because you are embracing age beautifully. You're radiant. You've allowed yourself to go silver gray, whatever you want to call it. You haven't puffed your face up with all kinds of artificial ways of trying to hide your age, which doesn't work for anybody. And I'm not saying don't try to look your best, don't try to feel your
No.
best, but those who are not embracing age and looking at it as a gift, and instead are still trying to look 20 when they're obviously not, it's
Mhm.
kind of hard. That's heartbreaking to me when I see, someone who is maybe obviously 80 years old wearing an outfit that a 20-year-old is wearing, and um, trying or overdoing it with the makeup, and just trying so hard when they would actually be more beautiful just embracing it. I know we all have we all have varying degrees of our subconscious there, but I will tell you, to me, there's a lot of men out there who are much better looking in their 50s, 60s than they were in their 30s, 40s. For whatever reason, they were awkward and now they've kind of just matured into their
But
own.
it's, I just have to interrupt and say it's so unfair though. Women, especially in the workplace, the color their hair because they don't want to look older. A man in his 50s who's balded and has a beer belly, nobody says, oh, that guy is old. They'll say maybe he's distinguished or something. But if a woman has similar characteristics, she'll be judged. It's a sexist and gender. It's called gendered ageism. I mean, it's just so unfair.
Gendered
But
ageism.
that's
Yeah.
that. But I think COVID did a lot to help us move beyond that, because I know that was my case. I did color my hair for a while, and I try not to be too judgmental about people who do choose to do those things, because I realize that they need to feel good about themselves, and whatever they have to do, they have to do.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons they have to do it, or they feel compelled to do it, is because of society's expectations of them. And they need to change, because it doesn't help to make people feel anxious or uncomfortable about
Or less
the
than. Yeah.
pardon?
Or less than.
Yeah, or less than, because they're older. And so that's really the message I'm trying to.
This is your power hour to me. Okay.
Yeah.
I will say, just for full transparency, the reason I color my hair today is the same reason I didn't dye it blonde in the 80s when everybody else was doing it. I
Right.
like dark hair on me, right? I don't like light colored hair on me. At some
Yeah.
point, I'm going to be cutting it, making it, just going for it, right? Because I used to get away with once every 8 weeks and once a month, and now it's just getting, now it's,
Well, I never would have known that you did that, but it does. As I say, I don't judge you or anyone for doing it, because I think it's essential to who you are, how you feel.
yeah. I really love that. And when you see someone, whether it's a woman or a man, and you see how vibrant they are in their mind, in their spirit, and really embracing their look as well, obviously dressing age appropriate, like not trying to get I don't know, get obviously outside of. Having style is one thing, but when it's so obvious that you're trying to be something you're not, I'm going to bring it back to the speaker. When you're on stage, even if you write a book, when you're on somebody's podcast, if you're trying to be someone you're obviously not, people see right through that. So they're going to embrace you if you embrace you, whether you are 50, 60, 70, 80. If you embrace the fact that I've got value that you want to hear, I've got some learned experiences that I can pass on to you, people are all ears. They lean in. They want that wisdom. But when you are fighting your own
Age.
elderhood, yeah, whatever you want to call it, then they're going to fight it too. Are they going to be relevant in the age of AI and all these changes? Well, yes, you're heck of a relevant, but you've got to believe it first
That's right.
before anybody else will. So I really love that you're going down this lane. So when you very first decided this message is important to me and I want to get it out there, how did you begin getting speaking engagements? How did you get your TEDx talk? How did you begin opening doors for yourself?
Well, I did a lot of not-for-profit work, speaking in a variety of different settings. That's really what did it. And when I got the responses that I did, as I always have, even when I was, speaking in schools and so on, I realized that maybe my message is resonating more than I think, and that it's even more necessary than ever to get this message out there. So I took some courses, about speaking and pitching and so on. I have a lot to learn. And the truth of the matter is, becoming an entrepreneur in my late 60s, I've had it's like a self-directed MBA, learning about business and everything else. So, I mean, it's taken time and it's slow. And because I am older, a lot of things didn't come as easily. For instance, social media. I still don't like it. But one of the things that I was brought up to believe was that, you don't brag about what you do or who you are. You walk the talk, or you show people through the actions you take. Well, it's, it's, so it took me about 2 years before I could actually put anything out there about myself, because it was just foreign to me. I'm
Right.
better at it, but I still don't like it.
I love that you challenge yourself as you're challenging yourself. You're
Yeah,
creating new pathways in your own being.
that's right.
That again speaks to why you're as vibrant as you are, and why you will continue. Why you're going to skip to we're all going to graduate at one point from this
Right.
world to the next. So why
That's
not
right.
do it dancing and skipping it?
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing you brought up that I want to just echo as well is, in this industry, there are many industries that if you're of a certain age, that you're going to be demoted in their mind as a prospect. Sadly, I think it's sad, but it's just the way that it is. Some of it's liability, some of it's insurance issues, those kinds of things. I think that there's just this whole built-in mindset that needs to be shifted. But when you talk about the speaking industry, I don't see that so much. I'd like to know if you've run into that. Like, if I were to pitch a 30-year-old speaker and an 80-year-old speaker, which I have, I do represent a speaker well into his 80s, with an incredible background. I don't see that age is a determining factor as to why they choose one speaker over the other. It's more topic appropriate. What do they
Mhm.
bring to the table? What kinds of social proof do they have behind them?
Yeah.
Testimonials. So it's as far as getting your voice out there in the capacity of speaking or corporate training or even writing a book, and not maybe even TEDx. I have not seen that age is a detriment. Maybe it's even helps to a certain degree. What's been your experience, because you have that lived experience of opening up doors that maybe weren't opened up to you before?
So I make a point now, as I did in this conversation, is to say what my age is, because I think one of the barriers that we face as we age is the fact that nobody wants to disclose that they're older, perhaps. And so anybody who doesn't want to hear the message, they won't engage me, right? But I really believe that one of the tactics has to do with authenticity and being genuine. And since my message is about age, I'm living it. Um, so why not speak about it and letting people know that that's who I am? So I haven't really found it as a barrier. I mean, there are other barriers, and it probably has to do with my own inability to market myself, for instance. I would say that with, as I just said, with social media and with other platforms. There's just so much time I have in a day. And I probably work as much now as I ever did when I was being, fully employed, because I love what I'm doing. But I really do want to get this message out there, because every time I do, I get the feedback that feeds me and wants, that I want to do it further. And that is that it's inspiring other people to think more positively, and to think that they can still contribute, and that they are meaningful and valuable members of society. And that is critical, moving forward, since they're going to be older people dominating our culture. And if they all felt, poorly about it, we're not going to thrive economically or as communities. So I really do think that it's significant, and the timing is right now. People are beginning to recognize it. Ageism is a huge problem. 1 out of 2 persons worldwide are ageist against older adults.
Well, what makes us think that 0 to 20 or 30 is more important than 60 to 70 or 80 or 90, right? You still have, I remember, as my mom was declining pretty significantly, I would take her places. She was such a light, and she would speak to people. I'm just like, I want to get my thing done and go. Like, I do. But
Yeah,
she would speak to people. I remember the day before she passed, of course, we didn't know she was going to pass.
no,
The impact she made on this young, uh, kind of down and out, woman who was struggling in life, and the impact my mom made just in a casual conversation. She had the woman in tears. And I have a feeling that woman went on and kind of looked at things. So our value does not change in reality, but in our minds, somehow those first 20 or 30 years, think about the journey between being born and 20, how much happens
Mhm.
in there. We get to 50 or 60 and think, oh, it's just like close the book. No, open it. We've got
I
so
think it
many
has a
more.
lot to do with vocabulary. Just think about all the terminology that we have to describe infants, newborns, babies, toddlers, preschoolers. Look at how many words we have to describe just the first 5 years. And I didn't mention them all. And then you get into, preteens and teens and blah, blah, blah. We have nothing to describe our older years. And that'll come, I think, because we have so many more people who are going to be entering into that phase of life. So it'll
Absolutely.
change, you know?
If you were to do a little research, anybody,
Mm,
you have, but if anybody were to get out there and do some research, it's astounding how many people reinvent themselves and actually create this whole huge ripple effect
mhm,
at age 40, 50, and beyond. Mary Kay from Mary Kay Cosmetics, she
mhm.
was well into midlife when she founded that company and lived it to the end of her days. I actually got to meet her. It was one way I
Okay.
got through college is becoming a higher up in Mary Kay
Oh,
Cosmetics. Not doing it anymore, but back in those days. But
cool.
there's so many stories out there of people who really just kind of just begin a whole new innovation, a whole new reinvention that lives well beyond them. But it's so sad to me when I come across somebody who might be over the age of 50 or so who is unwilling to invest in themselves because they
Well, the
don't.
research is conclusive that those people who are over 50, I think it's the Kaufman Institute that's proven it, are most successful in entrepreneurship.
Oh, okay. See,
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
fabulous.
they are. So, there are more people who are getting involved. And entrepreneurship, because of the online presence and so many other things, it is actually facilitating some of that. But the realities are, that 90% of small businesses fail. So, but of those that succeed, they tend to be older.
Yeah,
And it
love
makes
it.
sense.
Love it.
They've got networks, they've got finances, they've got experience.
And they usually have grit, like
Yeah.
a
Well,
little
if
bit
they're
more grit.
they're still in it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I know at about this time in the
Yeah.
show, there is a good number of the SpeakPact audience who would like to know, how do they find Helen Hirsch Spence? How do you like to be found?
Well, I have a LinkedIn profile with my name, Helen Hirsch Spence. I also have one for my business, Top 60 Over 60. So LinkedIn is always an easy way, but I can be found on my website as Helen at top60over60.com. Info there, it's accessible. You can contact me on the website, but it's simple. If you can remember and spell top60over60.com,
There you
you can
go.
find
There
you
you
can
go.
find me.
So if you've known, there's still so much more you want to do. This is the lady whose star you want to hitch your star onto, because you are a star in so many ways, and you are yet to be even a brighter star that's going to continue. Just as if there, there's plenty of us who don't even make it to 30 or make it to 40, right? But the impact that we made continues to live on. My father passed at 28, and I remember him today as if as I did 40 some odd years ago,
Yeah,
right? And the ripple effects of his life continue to live on in
that's right.
mine. So
Hmm.
why would that be any different if you happen to live out that long, beautiful, generous longevity of a life?
Right.
It's the same thing. So invest in yourself right now. Have the courage to step out in that thing that you think maybe you missed the boat on. And where I'm concerned, and hopefully where Helen's concerned, is do not hold back your voice.
That's
Get your voice out there. Helen, you're a perfect inspiration.
right.
I
You're
just love it.
flattering.
No flattery. Like if there were more people, if one person heard your message and they begin
Yeah.
sharing that shift in mind age, because we make ourselves old by the way we think. I
Right.
can't do this. So those self-imposed barriers. Whereas the next person's hiking right by us, who's like maybe double, double our age. I run into that all the time. I'll go,
Just challenge them. Challenge them. Every time they say, well, I can't do that, say, well, actually, you can. You have to want to,
you have to
and
want
you
to.
have,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
you
have
have
to
to
want
want
to.
to, really.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so our signature
Mhm.
question at the end of the show, and that is, what is a challenge that you would give to the Speak Pact audience, to the young audience, but also maybe to the audiences who is over the age of 50, 60, 70, right? If they have the slightest inkling that there's something they have to say, there's something more that they want to give or do, whether they're entrenched in their day to day, just trying to make the bills, or they're getting ready for retirement, what is that one thing that they can implement, that they can launch into kind of that younger mindset that reinvents?
Well, I mean, I think we spoke about it. I think that we have to uh, reimagine what a longer life can look like, and think differently. Like, get out of the box, get out of your boxes. Get out of change your perspective, start spotting opportunity, think differently about who you are, and start being more creative. Take some courses. I think it's really all about a growth mindset. I call it an entrepreneurial mindset. I mentioned to you that I was writing a book, which hopefully will be published within a year. But it's all about older adults overcoming self-directed ageism by engaging in an entrepreneurial mindset. And that doesn't mean that they have to become entrepreneurs by any means. It just means that they think about growth and learning, and start doing something differently, whether it's volunteer work or getting involved with theater, or I started painting watercolor at age 60.
Woo!
I'm never going to be I'm never going to
Rembrandt.
be exhibiting, but I love it. And I never knew that, some of the paintings I actually like, but it's the activity, and it's the people I've met through doing that, and that make a difference. So I really think that it's about the longevity mindset, and it's about the entrepreneurial mindset, and just do it. And I don't mean to be a Nike ad, but I do think that that's something that's significant. And then when you find people who want to engage you, reach back to them and make it easier for them. I often, if I'm invited to speak somewhere, I'll say, if somebody drops out, or you need a workshop presenter or whatever, I'm going to be at the conference anyway. I'd gladly help out in that way. That makes a huge difference with event planners and conference organizers and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's also fun, so
Yeah.
those are the kinds of things that I would recommend. I
Well,
don't
you
know
know
if
what? Brilliant. All of that. And we've gone way over on this episode, but it's because I feel like it's such an important topic, especially, well, not especially, and in addition, and very important in the speaking industry, in the corporate training industry, and just the
yeah,
passing it forward industry, right? I'd love for you to speak to this because we didn't. If you don't mind sticking with us a little longer, I know that
sure.
we've gone long.
Your audience might not, but
I
I will.
I think they will. I think they will. You are brilliant, and you're bringing forth a very important topic, and it's relating to a lot of them out there. Because as you said, there's a whole lot of people out there who are who can relate to feeling like they are reaching those upper age brackets, right? So when it comes to reaching a new era of your life, I feel like if you want to still be vibrant, still create, still innovate, there's a certain amount of cleansing. This is going to sound a bit harsh, but there's a certain amount of cleansing of your space that needs to happen, because if you're hanging out with your old friends who have bad knees and complaining about their health and talking about their doctor, and I remember my husband at one point, his mom, every time she talked to him, she would be talking about who died now, right? She was just going to funeral after funeral. But I think you almost need to break out of that and cleanse your space. Not even like if you've lived in your home for 40 years, move the heck out of your home, then move back in with new stuff. Like, because you can get stuck in this world. Join outdoor adventure clubs, be around younger people. To me,
Right.
I feel like that's really important, or else you kind of slip into that without even maybe realizing that you are, when you've still got so much, so much. So, can you speak to that a little bit and correct me if there's anything that you maybe don't agree with what I said?
No, I agree with what you said. I wouldn't call it cleansing. What I would say, however, is I think as you get older, this should be happening anyway. It's really about the power of association. You know, I reflect the 5 people that I'm closest to. And if I look at some of those people and they're toxic or their attitudes are very different from mine, I have now given myself permission to move away from those people and replace them with those who are are more enthusiastic about life, you know, because I realize that they have an influence on me. So, you know, I don't spend as much time with those people anymore. So that's one of the things that I have found myself doing. And oh, there was something else I wanted to say, but I just forgot what it was. You know, so that power of association.
Well,
And
that
I do, oh, I know what it was.
okay,
And
go
the
ahead.
other thing is I deliberately try to cultivate friendships among other age groups for 2 reasons. One, because when I'm older, I don't want to be left without any friends. I want to still have friends who are important to me of other generations. And the other thing is that I realize that young people in particular really enjoy being around or knowing older people, but they're intimidated. I've heard one of the things I did during COVID, which I loved, was I created something called Conversations Across Generations, and it was on
Mm.
Zoom. And I had people from all over the world tapping in, young people. And one of the things they said to me is, this is so great because you're facilitating us talking to people who are older, who we typically wouldn't talk to except for our parents or grandparents. And so we're gaining new insights and new ideas. So that's the other thing that I really encourage. I really believe in intergenerational collaboration, not only working together, but finding opportunities to enrich your life and others by going across generations, not just sticking to your own age group.
Ah, love that. Okay, so much that I would love to dive into more with you, but this is a perfect place to end because this message is as relevant to a 20-year-old as it is an 80-year-old. I just very quickly, I grew up uh, half the time homeless, half the time in foster care, pretty rough early beginnings. But when I became a young adult, I decided I wanted to associate with what I wanted to become. And
Mhm.
so instead of, I couldn't afford high rent, so I would rent a converted garage in a nice neighborhood, right?
Mhm.
Somebody's mother-in-law quarters. I would place myself in the places that I eventually wanted to be. And I
Perfect.
got the education by flagging during the summer in construction so I could
Yeah,
raise enough money and then
sure.
Mary Kay Cosmetics, all the things. And I was determined to reassociate, not perpetuate a pattern that I felt like I could have otherwise felt like I was stuck in. So
Well, you were conscious. You were very conscious of what you wanted. So that's great.
yes, this has been such an enriching conversation. Everyone, look up Helen Hirsch, Hirch,
Nope. HIRSH.
SH, thank you. Spence, SPENCE, and it's 60 spelled out over 60.com.
Top 60 over 60.
See, she's sharper than me.
It's my business. I know.
All right, Helen, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for being
Thank
with
you.
us today.
And thank you for the opportunity. It's been great.
Ciao for now.
Thank you for listening to the SpeakPact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the SPEAKPact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply hashtag SpeakPact.